So that's essentially what I do in a nutshell. You have questions or?
Yeah, we have an area in our company that's a real critical area to the company, but it's also an entry-level area to the company. And over the past maybe year or two, we've added more employees for whom English is a second language. And the manager of that department sort of wanted to open up training opportunities for these people, I think to address whatever problem she's perceiving, but she's thinking training is,
Right.
you know, go learn business writing or go to grammar,
Right.
and
Right.
you know, everything will be hunky-dory. What would you suggest in a situation like that that we really look at?
I think her intuition is correct. However, I would back it up a step from the point of view that I think there seems to be some education on the American side of things, particularly from the point of view of when you hire someone from a different country and who comes speaking English as a second language and having the same difficulty that you experienced just a few minutes ago when they're sitting there, is there should be some understanding of the American corporate structure, management structure, from the point of view that if you do hire people who speak English as a second language, that there are certain realities and challenges that they are facing that are very unique to them, and that you as an American manager should be very aware of. So I would think it would be twofold. It would be an educational process with the Americans in terms of what the reality is at. And then if the group becomes large enough, that subgroup, like that group of Vietnamese or whomever, is working with them and saying, it's important for you to understand that, yes, you're here in the United States and this is where you want to be, but let's talk a little bit about what the United States is all about from a value point of view.
Could you do that, like in this particular group, they're not from any one specific geographic region.
Yeah.
There's one guy from Russia, one guy
Yeah.
from the Middle East, several from...
You could do it with a mixed. I have done it with a mixed group, very much so, very much so. You have to structure it a different way. You can't break people up into the Saudis or the whoever, but you can definitely experiment and delve into who we are as Americans, and leave them time to reflect about how that may or may not be similar to the way that I think or where I came from, because therein lies the challenge, that potential barrier about what my reality is and what this is.
What about this seems to me to be a very small part of this issue, but an important part. A lot of the times when we hire people from overseas, they were professionals. We have a person, for instance, who has 2 doctorates. He taught at Oxford. He's now in this entry-level position.
He's British?
He's actually Middle East.
Yeah, I think he's Iranian.
Iranian, moved to England, taught at Oxford, has a degree in economics and psychology, I believe.
Yeah.
And now he's writing letters for us. He's in our correspondence department, which is an entry-level position. And it's kind of a bizarre thing that a lot of these people that come over here were doctors in their home. And
well, it's interesting because our assumption is that because they're a doctorate, we know what that means in our reality. PhD, disciplined, knows how to be professional, all those things. But all those are American-based values, assumptions. So in that particular case, I would actually work with that individual alone first, just to find out exactly where the issues are. Primarily because you're mixing the Middle East culture with very formal British education, which by the way is not unusual, because many of those Middle Eastern countries were protectorates of Britain up until 1971. You know, so in that case, I would work with that individual first.
I sensed when I was working with some of these people that there was almost there was awe, but there was jealousy.
Yeah.
And that was from the American.
From the American side of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's not often you meet someone with two PhDs walking around. You know.
He was a published author.
Published author, and who you can actually speak with. But then you realize that you're separated by American and English. It's a joke between working with anyone from Britain, is that we're separated by our common language.
Absolutely.
You know, because what you experience is oftentimes the case. And we're talking about those moments where they say something and you're kind of like trying to catch up with what they said, and they're still going on, and then you say, oh yeah, and then you're lost. And then it's, well, do I embarrass myself by saying excuse me for the 14th time, or do I just sit there and go? And oftentimes people just sit there and go, and then something arises. Now mind you, oftentimes I do not come in a stage where it's all hell. You know, oftentimes it's proactive, where management foresees a situation, and it's a very straightforward situation of just making sure everybody understands each other. And I view it as just building a bridge so that we both meet somewhere in between.
And do you address issues of body language?
Yes.
And
Yes. Oh, very much so.
And like gender perspectives?
Oh, absolutely. You learn so much. I mean, one statistic I'll throw out, which is fascinating, is that when you think about the way humans communicate, regardless of whether they're black or white or Hispanic or white American or whatever, the way people, human beings communicate, when you consider what percentage, I'll ask you the question, if you were to take the way we communicate as 100% and divide it into nonverbal and verbal, what do you think the percentages of nonverbal and verbal are?
58%, 30%, 7%.
Close.
58% nonverbal.
Yeah. Basically speaking, we're talking about 30% verbal, 70% nonverbal. Now you consider, when you meet someone from that different cultural reality, just consider that about 70% of what's going on you don't get.
But also,
you know, when you think about it, you
you
go,
can have two people that can't speak the same language and they communicate because they're paying attention to body language
You
and
have to.
facial expression.
But you're also working overtime, as you did in listening and as you did in speaking. You work overtime, and it's not appreciated. And often from both sides, you know.
Can we
That
borrow that exercise?
please do. It gets a lot communicated very quickly, and you understand the reality straightforward. And that's what cross-cultural is all about. It's experiential, it's visceral. You know, I could talk about it for a long time, but I think you understand it when we do that.